The Alpha King bought an Omega girl with a sack on her head at auction and claimed her when she said his name. She wasn't supposed to know who he was. No one could see her face beneath that burlap prison. But when the sack came off, this terrified Omega looked straight at the most powerful Alpha in North America and whispered the one word that changed everything. His name. In that instant, a mate bond exploded between them, one he'd spent 10 years avoiding, one that should have been impossible. But here's what nobody else knows. She's been seeing him in visions since she was a child. She's the last of her kind, a prophet who can see the future. And in every vision, he's either her salvation or her destruction. Now his own brother wants her power, the same brother who slaughtered her entire pack to get to her. When destiny itself is hunting you down, can love rewrite fate? Or will her gift become the very thing that tears them apart? Every story I share leads with love, for people, for healing, for the things we sometimes forget to say out loud. The stench of fear and desperation hung heavy in the underground auction house, a cloying mix of sweat and misery that assaulted Kieran Blackstone's heightened senses. The Alpha King's face remained impassive as he stood beside his Beta Damon Rivers, watching the parade of captured wolves with cold calculation. They had come seeking warriors to strengthen their army, but so far, the offerings had been disappointing. "Another waste of time," Damon muttered under his breath, low enough that only Kieran could hear. Kieran gave a subtle nod, his steel-gray eyes scanning the dimly lit chamber. The stone walls seemed to trap the despair of countless wolves who had been sold here over the years. As Alpha King, he despised these auctions, but sometimes necessity demanded unpleasant choices. "And now, for our final lot of the evening?" The auctioneer's voice boomed through the space, dripping with false enthusiasm. "Something special for you discriminating alphas?" Two burly guards dragged forward a female figure, her head covered by a rough burlap sack. Silver chains bound her wrists, and Kieran could smell the acrid scent of burning flesh where the metal touched her skin. Despite the obvious pain, she didn't stumble or whimper. The auctioneer circled her like a vulture. "An Omega of rare quality, gentlemen. Completely unspoiled and unmatched. We've kept her veiled to prevent any false mate bond claims. Pure as driven snow and just as lovely underneath." Kieran's attention sharpened. Something about this Omega was different. Where others had cowered and hunched, trying to appear smaller, she stood straight-backed despite her bonds. Her chin was lifted slightly, not in challenge, but in quiet dignity. "Let's start the bidding at 10,000. The auctioneer grabbed the sack, preparing to reveal her face. "Wait," Kieran started to say, suddenly uneasy, but it was too late. The auctioneer yanked the covering away with unnecessary violence, and Kieran's world tilted on its axis. Large, silver eyes, bright with fear but unmarred by defeat, locked onto his. Time seemed to stop as those eyes widened in recognition. "Kieran," she whispered, his name falling from her lips like a prayer. The sound of his name in her voice shot through him like lightning, igniting every nerve ending and setting his blood on fire. The mate bond he had successfully avoided for 10 years snapped into place with the force of a thunderclap, nearly driving him to his knees. Colors became sharper, scents more vivid, and at the center of it all was her, his mate, his other half, being sold like cattle in this cesspit. The room erupted into chaos as other alphas sensed the connection forming. The air grew thick with aggression and challenge as several stepped forward, their eyes gleaming with predatory interest. Some would try to claim her despite the obvious mate bond, seeing only an opportunity to weaken the Alpha King. "Sir," Damon warned, his hand moving to his weapon as several rivals shifted closer. Kieran's wolf surged forward, rage building at the sight of the silver chains marring his mate's delicate wrists, at the hungry looks being cast her way. A growl built in his chest, deep and threatening, causing several nearby alphas to step back instinctively. The auctioneer, oblivious to the mounting tension, continued his sales pitch. "As you can see, gentlemen, a rare beauty indeed. Do I hear 15,000? 20,000, someone called from the back. 30, shouted another. His mate trembled slightly, but her eyes never left Kieran's face. There was something in her gaze, not just fear or hope, but recognition, as if she had been waiting for him, expecting him somehow. The silver chains were leaving deeper burns on her wrists with each passing second. The sight of her pain made Kieran's decision crystallize with brutal clarity. He had spent 10 years avoiding mate bonds, seeing them as potential weaknesses that could compromise his position as Alpha King. But watching her stand there, hurt but unbowed, he realized that some choices were never really choices at all. 100,000? Kieran's voice cut through the bidding like a blade, and silencing the room. The amount was outrageous, far more than any Omega had ever sold for, but he needed to end this quickly before blood was shed. The auctioneer's eyes gleamed with greed. 100,000! Do I hear? In gold, Kieran added coldly, to be delivered within the hour. And if those chains aren't removed from her immediately, I will personally ensure this establishment never sees another auction. The tension in the auction house snapped like a bowstring as Kieran moved. His power rolled through the room in crushing waves, making lesser wolves stumble back and drop their eyes. Even rival alphas stepped aside, their challenges dying in their throats as the Alpha King's dominance pressed down on them like a physical weight. Damon fell into step behind his alpha, ready to deal with anyone foolish enough to interfere. But none dared. They had all heard stories of Kieran Blackstone's lethal efficiency in battle, and no one wanted to test those legends tonight. Kieran reached the platform in 4 long strides, his presence making the auctioneer shrink back. Without ceremony, he snapped the silver chains binding his mate's wrists, tossing them aside with a snarl of disgust. Angry red burns marked her delicate skin where the silver had touched her. "You're safe now," he murmured, gentle despite his rage. Then, meeting the eyes of every alpha in the room, he pulled her close and deliberately ran his nose along her neck, marking her with his scent. The message was clear. She was under his protection, and any challenge would mean death. A bag of gold coins hit the platform with a heavy thud. "Enough there to buy 10 warriors," Kieran announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Any objections?" The silence that followed was absolute. The moment the business was concluded, Sarah's legs gave out. The silver poisoning and exhaustion finally overtook her, and she collapsed against Kieran's chest. He caught her easily, lifting her into his arms. The contact sent his wolf into a frenzy, demanding they complete the mate bond immediately. Kieran gritted his teeth, forcing down the primal urge. She needed healing first. "The car," he ordered Damon tersely, already moving toward the exit with his precious burden. They made it to the armored SUV without incident, though Kieran could feel hungry eyes following their every move. He settled into the back seat with Sarah cradled against him while Damon took the wheel. As they sped through the night toward Blackstone territory, Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness. Her head rested against Kieran's shoulder, and her fevered mumblings made his wolf whine with concern. "Silver eyes in the darkness," she whispered, her voice distant. "I've seen them so many times. Waiting, watching." Her fingers clutched weakly at his shirt. The Shadow Brother brings death in his wake. Damon's eyes met Kieran's in the rearview mirror. "My alpha, I must speak freely," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "With the rogue attacks increasing, bringing an unknown Omega into the heart of our defenses." "She's my mate, Damon." Kieran cut him off, but without anger. His beta was right to voice these concerns. "Even so, sir, we know nothing about her." Kieran stroked Sarah's hair back from her fevered brow, struggling to put into words what he was feeling. "I heard her before she spoke," he admitted quietly, "like a whisper in my mind, calling me. I thought I was imagining it until she said my name." Damon's eyebrows rose. Such a connection before a mate bond was rare, almost unheard of. "That's unusual." The sky was beginning to lighten with pre-dawn gray when they crossed into Blackstone territory. Sarah had been quiet for several miles, seeming to rest more peacefully as they neared the packlands. Suddenly, her eyes flew open, glowing with an eerie silver light. Her hand shot out to grab Kieran's with surprising strength. "The crown that protects will become the chain that binds," she said, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that made both men's wolves stand at attention. Then the light faded from her eyes, and she slumped back into unconsciousness. Damon's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Was that?" "A prophecy," Kieran confirmed, his mind racing. In all his years as Alpha King, he'd never encountered a true prophet. They were incredibly rare and fiercely protected by the packs, fortunate enough to have them. The implications of his mate having such power were staggering. He looked down at her peaceful face, noting how even exhausted and injured she maintained that quiet dignity he'd first noticed. His wolf paced restlessly, wanting to heal her, protect her, claim her. But now there were even more questions that needed answers. "Alert Elena," he told Damon. "Have her ready for a silver poisoning case, and send word to the Stone Twins. I want security doubled around the pack house until we know more about these Shadow Brother warnings." The whispers spread like wildfire through the great hall of Blackstone Pack's fortress as Kieran strode through with Sarah limp in his arms. Warriors and pack members alike pressed against the stone walls, their eyes wide at the sight of their alpha king carrying an unconscious female so tenderly. "Clear the way!" Damon's voice boomed ahead of them as they approached the medical wing. "Elena, silver poisoning case incoming." The pack's healer was already waiting, her expert eyes assessing Sarah even before Kieran laid her on the examination table. Elena's sharp intake of breath made Kieran tense. "What is it?" he demanded. Elena's fingers trembled as she brushed back Sarah's hair, revealing a distinctive streak of silver white among the dark strands. With gentle movements, she turned Sarah's shoulder, exposing a crescent-shaped birthmark that seemed to shimmer in the light. "My Alpha," Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. "She's Luna-touched, a true prophet." Kieran's chest tightened. He'd suspected as much after her prophecy in the car, but having it confirmed made everything more complicated. "How can you be sure?" "The marks are unmistakable," Elena explained as she began treating the angry burns on Sarah's wrists. "The silver streak in her hair, the crescent mark, these are signs that appear only once a century when Luna chooses to gift a wolf with true sight." She glanced up at him, her expression grave. "Whole territories have gone to war over prophets, my Alpha. Their visions can change the fate of packs." "Double the guards," Kieran ordered Damon without taking his eyes off Sarah. "I want the Stone Twins personally overseeing her security. No one enters this room without my direct approval." As Elena worked to draw out the silver poisoning, Kieran paced the room like a caged animal. His wolf wouldn't settle, desperate to stay close to their injured mate. Hours crawled by as Sarah remained unconscious, her breathing slowly becoming stronger as Elena's treatments took effect. The sun had set when Sarah finally stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, immediately widening with panic as she took in the unfamiliar surroundings. She tried to bolt upright, but Kieran was there in an instant, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You're safe," he assured her. "You're under my protection now." Instead of calming her, his presence seemed to confuse her more. "Where? Who?" Her silver eyes darted around the room. "How did I get here?" Kieran frowned. "You don't remember?" "At the auction house, you knew my name." "The auction house?" Sarah's face crumpled with distress. "Everything's foggy. I remember being captured, the silver chains." She shuddered. "But I don't. I've never met you before. Though ... She tilted her head, studying his face. "Your eyes. I've seen them in visions, but—" "I'm Kieran Blackstone," he said softly. "And you are?" Sarah Moonwright." Her voice broke on the name and sudden tears spilled down her cheeks. "My pack. Oh, goddess, my pack." "What happened?" Kieran asked, fighting the urge to gather her close and shelter her from whatever painful memories were surfacing. 3 weeks ago," she whispered. "They came at night. Rogues, so many of them, led by someone they called the Crimson Prince." Her hands twisted in the sheets. "They knew about my visions somehow. They were looking specifically for me. My parents tried to hide me, but—" A sob caught in her throat. "They killed everyone. The entire Moonwright pack. I only escaped because my father—" She couldn't continue. Kieran did reach for her then, laying his hand over hers in comfort. The moment their skin touched, Sarah's body went rigid. Her eyes glazed over with that now familiar silver glow, and a terrible sound escaped her throat. The vision slammed into her with violent force. Kieran standing in the great hall of his fortress, moonlight streaming through the windows. Blood pooled around his feet, spreading in dark rivers across the stone floor. A silver blade protruded from his chest, and his face was twisted in agony. Behind him, a massive wolf with burning crimson eyes threw back its head in a triumphant howl that shook the very foundations of the pack house. Sarah came back to herself with a gasp, jerking away from Kieran's touch. Her whole body trembled as she stared at him in horror. "What did you see?" he asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. "Death," she whispered. "Your death. A silver blade through your heart and a wolf with crimson eyes standing victor over your body." She wrapped her arms around herself, still shaking. "So much blood. So much blood." The morning sun streamed through the fortress windows as Kieran led Sarah into the council chamber, where his inner circle waited. She walked tall despite her obvious nervousness, her silver-streaked hair catching the light. "This is Sarah Moonwright," Kieran announced to the small group. She's under my personal protection as a refugee from the recent attacks. He deliberately omitted any mention of their mate bond, though his wolf bristled at the omission. Damon stood with his arms crossed, his bated scrutiny sharp as he assessed Sarah. The Moonright Pack was known for their peaceful ways, he said. Not exactly warriors. How did you alone survive when your entire pack fell? Before Sarah could answer, the Stone Twins stepped forward. Ash grinned warmly while Ivy offered a small bow. Don't mind our grumpy beta, Ash said. He suspects everyone at first. But he's usually wrong, Ivy finished, earning a glare from Damon. Sarah's tension eased slightly at their friendly welcome. I understand his concern, she said softly. These are dangerous times. Trust must be earned. As if to prove her point, Sarah suddenly stiffened, her eyes taking on that ethereal silver glow. Eastern border, she gasped. 23 rogues approaching through the ravine. They'll attack within the hour, thinking the morning patrol has passed. Kieran didn't hesitate. Damon, take 2 units to the high ground above the ravine. Ash, Ivy, circle behind to cut off their retreat. Move now. The warriors rushed to obey, though Damon cast one last suspicious look at Sarah before leaving. Kieran watched his pack members spring into action, then turned to find Sarah swaying on her feet. The visions drain you, he observed, steadying her with a hand at her elbow. They're worth the cost if they save lives, she replied. Her prediction proved deadly accurate. The rogues walked right into the trap, caught between Damon's forces above and the twins' pincer movement. The battle was swift and decisive, with only minor injuries among Kieran's warriors. In the aftermath, Sarah worked alongside Elena in the medical wing, her gentle touch and quiet compassion earning grateful looks from the wounded. Even Damon's expression softened when she helped clean and bandage a deep gash on his arm. Your vision saved my warriors today, he admitted gruffly. Perhaps I judged too quickly. As night fell, Kieran found Sarah on the balcony of her guarded suite, staring at the moon. The silver light painted her in an otherworldly glow that made his wolf stir restlessly. Does it ever get easier? She asked without turning. The weight of so many lives depending on your decisions? Kieran moved to stand beside her, close enough to feel her warmth but not touching. No, he answered honestly. The crown is as much burden as honor. Like the visions, she whispered. I've seen so many possible futures, so much death and hope intertwined. She finally looked at him, her silver eyes luminous. I've seen you in them since I was a child. The admission made his heart race. What did you see? You, always you. Sometimes as my salvation, sometimes as my destruction. Her voice trembled, but I never saw how deeply I would feel when we actually met. The air between them crackled with tension. Kieran's wolf howled to claim her, to complete the mate bond that hummed between them. Sarah swayed toward him, her lips parting slightly as he leaned down. A sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. My Alpha, a guard called urgently. A messenger from the High Council demands immediate audience. Kieran growled in frustration, but duty forced him to step back. Enter. The messenger burst in, face grave as he dropped to one knee and extended a sealed scroll. My Alpha King, I bring grave news that requires your immediate attention. The formal wax seal of the High Council gleamed ominously in the moonlight as Kieran took the scroll, the almost kiss forgotten in the sudden weight of impending crisis. Kieran's fingers tightened on the scroll as he read, his face growing darker with each line. The messenger remained kneeling, head bowed, while Sarah watched with growing concern. Leave us, Kieran ordered the messenger, his voice deadly calm. The man scrambled to obey, closing the door behind him. What is it? Sarah asked, her heart pounding at the rage she could feel rolling off him in waves. Kieran's eyes blazed alpha gold as he turned to her. Marcus Crimson of the Southern Territories has filed a formal claim on you with the High Council. He says he purchased you from your father before your pack's destruction. He held up the scroll. He has a contract bearing your father's signature. The color drained from Sarah's face. That's impossible. My father would never. Marcus Crimson, Kieran cut in, his voice rough with emotion, was born Marcus Blackstone. He's my younger brother. Sarah stumbled backward until her legs hit a chair, sinking into it. Your brother? I banished him 5 years ago for practicing blood magic. Kieran's hands clenched into fists. He took the name Crimson after that, building his own territory in the south. I should have known he was behind the attacks on your pack. But my father would never sell me, Sarah insisted, tears filling her eyes. Never. Marcus must have forged the document after he killed them all. Kieran knelt before her chair, taking her trembling hands in his. The contract predates my claim on you at the auction house. By ancient pack law, his claim would be valid unless... Unless what? Unless I can prove our mate bond or win you in formal combat. His jaw clenched. But if I publicly declare you as my mate, every enemy I've made as Alpha King will target you to get to me. Sarah's fingers tightened around his. The Crimson Prince, she whispered. That's what they called him when he attacked our pack. His wolves had red eyes, tainted by blood magic. He knew about my visions somehow. They weren't just killing randomly, they were hunting me specifically. Kieran stood and began pacing, his powerful frame tight with tension. Marcus demands we appear at neutral territory for a formal hearing in 3 days. His voice dropped to a growl. If we refuse, he'll declare war on the Blackstone Pack. He's forcing your hand, Sarah realized. Either you reveal our mate bond and make me vulnerable to your enemies, or I risk losing you to him entirely. Kieran slammed his fist into the stone wall, leaving cracks in the ancient surface. He knows I won't risk the lives of my entire pack in a war, not even for... He stopped himself, but Sarah heard the unspoken words. Not even for my mate. There has to be another way, she said, rising from the chair. My visions, maybe they can show us. No. Kieran crossed the room in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. The visions drain you too much, and Marcus knows about them now. He'll find a way to use them against us both. Sarah lifted her chin defiantly. Then we fight him. I won't be a piece in his game. You don't understand what he's capable of, Kieran said, his voice hoarse. The blood magic changed him. The brother I grew up with, the one I loved, he's gone. This Marcus is something else entirely. Something darker. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. My father's signature? He must have taken it before killing him. I remember hearing him beg for my life, telling them I wasn't there. Her voice broke. I was hiding in the secret room beneath the library, just like he taught me. I heard everything, their screams, their pleas, and Marcus's voice ordering them all slaughtered. Kieran pulled her into his arms, unable to resist the need to comfort her. His wolf howled in shared pain as she sobbed against his chest. The mate bond pulsed between them, demanding to be completed, to be acknowledged. 3 days? He murmured into her hair. We have 3 days to find another way. But they both knew the choice that loomed. Reveal their bond and paint a target on Sarah's back, or find some way to keep her from Marcus's cruel hands, without starting a war that would tear the werewolf world apart. Sarah pulled back just enough to look up at him, her silver eyes bright with tears but determined. Whatever you decide, she whispered, we face it together. I won't let him use me to destroy everything you've built. Kieran brushed a tear from her cheek, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to claim her, to complete their bond and damn the consequences. But, as Alpha King, his choices affected thousands of lives, and his brother knew exactly how to use that responsibility against him. The summit grounds buzzed with tension as 5 major pack representatives gathered in the ancient stone amphitheater. Kieran stood tall at one end, Sarah beside him, while across the circular space, Marcus made his entrance with dramatic flair. At least 50 of his followers filed in behind him, their eyes glowing with an unnatural reddish tint that made several council members shift uneasily. Sarah's breath caught when she saw Marcus for the first time in full light. The handsome features he shared with Kieran were now marred by scarlet markings that seemed to writhe beneath his skin like living tattoos. Blood magic had left its corrupt signature on his face, turning what must have once been devastating beauty into something that made her skin crawl. Honorable Council, Marcus addressed them, his voice smooth as honey despite his frightening appearance. I come seeking justice. My brother, the mighty Alpha King, has stolen what is rightfully mine. He produced a rolled parchment with flourish. I purchased the rights to mate with Sarah Moonwright from her father, with full documentation and witnesses. The head council member, a stern female alpha named Helena, examined the contract. The signature appears authentic, she stated, and predates Kieran Blackstone's claim by several months. He holds her prisoner, Marcus continued, fixing Sarah with a look of manufactured concern. I've loved her from afar, waiting for the proper time to claim her. Instead, my brother swooped in like a common thief at that disgraceful auction. Kieran's growl resonated through the chamber, but he held his position. The council turned to Sarah expectantly. Sarah Moonwright, Helena said, you may speak freely here. Tell us the truth of these claims. Sarah stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing. That contract is a forgery, she declared, her voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater. And I can tell you exactly when it was created. The night Marcus Crimson murdered my entire pack. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Marcus's face darkened. I was there, Sarah continued, strength flowing into her words. Hidden beneath the library floor, I heard everything. Marcus led the attack himself. His eyes glowed crimson as he tortured my father for information about me. When my father refused to reveal my location, Marcus killed him personally. I heard his last breath. The council members exchanged troubled looks. These are serious accusations, Helena said. Do you have proof beyond your word? She speaks lies, Marcus snarled, his carefully crafted mask slipping. Where is this proof? My visions showed me glimpses of that night, Sarah replied, even before it happened. Convenient, Marcus sneered, claiming mystical knowledge that cannot be verified. He turned to the council. I propose a simpler solution. Single combat, brother against brother. Let the goddess decide who has the rightful claim. Kieran stepped forward, his alpha power filling the space. I accept. No. Sarah's voice rang out. I invoke the trial of visions. The chamber fell silent. Even Marcus looked stunned. You dare? Helena whispered. The trial of visions hasn't been called in over 2 centuries. It requires immense power. It could kill you. As a Luna-touched prophet, it is my right, Sarah stated firmly. At the next full moon, I will share my visions with the entire council. You will see the truth with your own eyes. The council huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Finally, Helena nodded. The trial of visions is granted. 7 days hence, under the full moon, we will reconvene. Until then, Sarah Moonwright remains under Kieran Blackstone's protection. Marcus's face contorted with rage before he smoothed it away. 7 days, then, he said silkily. Don't disappoint us, little prophet. He swept out with his followers, leaving behind a chill in the air. Later that night, in the privacy of their cabin at the summit grounds, Sarah paced while Kieran watched her from beside the fireplace. You shouldn't have done that, he said softly. The trial of visions could drain your life force completely. Sarah stopped pacing. It was the only way. I won't let you fight him. I've seen what his blood magic can do. Kieran crossed the room in 3 strides, catching her arms. And I won't let you sacrifice yourself. The mate bond hummed between them, impossible to ignore in such close proximity. Sarah looked up into his silver eyes, seeing the same desperate need she felt reflected there. I won't lose you to him, Kieran whispered, one hand sliding up to cup her face. Not to my brother, not to anyone. Then don't fight it anymore, Sarah breathed. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home. The mate bond exploded between them, filling the room with silver light. Kieran's wolf howled in triumph as he pulled her closer, deepening the kiss until they were both breathless. When they finally parted, their foreheads resting together, the bond pulsed stronger than ever. 7 days, Sarah whispered against his lips. We have 7 days to prepare for what's coming. Back within Blackstone Territory's protective walls, Elena's medical wing became Sarah's training ground. The healer's usually pristine space now held burning sage in crystalline bowls filled with sacred water, ancient tools to help prophets focus their gifts. Breathe deeply, Elena instructed as Sarah sat cross-legged on a cushioned mat. Your visions are not your enemy. They're messages from Luna herself. You must learn to direct the flow rather than drown in it. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to center herself. After hours of practice, sweat beaded on her forehead as she attempted to control when and how the visions came. Each session left her drained, sometimes barely able to stand. Kieran watched from the doorway, his powerful presence both comforting and distracting. He had appointed himself her personal guard, refusing to leave her protection to anyone else after what happened at the summit. When she stumbled after a particularly intense vision, he was there instantly, strong arms catching her before she fell. That's enough for today, Elena said firmly, noting Sarah's pallor. No, Sarah protested weakly. I need to be stronger for the trial. You need to be alive for the trial, Kieran countered, helping her to a chair. Rest. During their afternoons together, Sarah worked on teaching Kieran to receive her visions. They sat facing each other, hands clasped, as she guided him through, opening his mind to her gift. It's like lowering a wall, she explained softly, just enough to let light through. As they practiced, her control sometimes slipped. Accidentally, she shared a sunlit memory of her childhood, running through meadows with her pack, her father's loving smile, her mother's gentle hands braiding her hair. Kieran's grip tightened, his eyes softening at glimpsing her happy past. In turn, he unexpectedly shared his own painful memory, discovering Marcus in the pack's sacred grove, standing over the body of a young wolf, drawing power from spilled blood. The anguish of banishing his own brother still burned raw in his mind. "I loved him," Kieran admitted roughly, "but he was corrupting everything our parents built. I had no choice." On the fourth night, exhausted from training, Sarah was reading in her chambers when she smelled something wrong in her evening tea. Before she could call out, two shadows detached from the corners, moving with unnatural speed. Kieran burst through the door as one assassin pressed a poisoned blade to her throat. His roar shook the walls as he transformed, becoming a massive black wolf with silver eyes. The fight was brutal and swift. Kieran's jaws crushed throats and broke bones, his claws tearing the assassins apart with devastating fury. When it was over, he stood in human form again, covered in blood and trembling with rage. His eyes blazed alpha red as he pulled Sarah close, inhaling her scent to confirm she was unharmed. "Mine," he growled, his wolf too close to the surface. His lips crashed down on hers, the mate bond surging between them with desperate need. His hands tangled in her hair as he backed her against the wall, every line of his body pressing against hers. "Kieran," she gasped as his mouth moved to her neck, where the mating bite would go. "Wait." He froze, fighting for control. "They almost took you from me," he snarled. "If we complete the mating now, the council will say you forced me," she said softly, cupping his face. "We have to wait." Kieran pressed his forehead to hers, taking shuddering breaths. "Marcus will keep trying to kill you." "It's not just Marcus anymore," Sarah whispered. "I need to show you something." She placed her hands on his chest, sharing her most terrifying vision. They both saw Marcus performing a dark ritual, cutting his own chest open to invite something ancient and evil inside. A shadowy entity with void black eyes poured into him, twisting his features into the scarlet-marked visage they'd seen at the summit. "The Void Walker," Sarah explained, shivering. "An ancient being that feeds on alpha power. It's been possessing Marcus for years, corrupting him slowly. That's why he wants me. My visions could help it locate and consume every powerful alpha in existence." Kieran pulled back, his expression haunted. "How long?" "Since before you banished him," she said gently. "The brother you knew was already being consumed. That's why he turned to blood magic. The entity was feeding on his soul, making him desperate for more power." Kieran's hands fisted at his sides. "Then I'll destroy this thing and free him." "We'll face it together," Sarah promised, taking his hand. "But first, we have to survive the trial." The moon hung heavy and threatening in the sky as Sarah's visions intensified, each one more violent than the last. She sat in Elena's healing room, gripping the edges of her chair as timeline after timeline flashed through her mind. "Blood," she gasped, her silver eyes wide. "So much blood. The trial chamber splits in two different paths. In one, we succeed. In the other—" She couldn't finish the sentence as she watched phantom bodies fall in her mind. Elena pressed a cool cloth to her forehead. "What else do you see, child?" "Marcus. He's been gathering things. Dark things." Sarah's voice trembled. "Cursed artifacts, ancient talismans soaked in blood magic. He plans to strike when I'm sharing visions with the council, when I'm most vulnerable." Kieran, who hadn't left her side for 2 days, immediately began issuing orders through the pack bond. Warriors mobilized across Blackstone territory preparing for war. In quiet moments, he worked with Damon to arrange escape routes, planning to get Sarah to safety if everything went wrong. "I won't leave you," Sarah protested when she discovered their plans. "You won't have a choice," Kieran replied, his voice firm but his touch gentle as he cupped her face. "I won't lose you to him." That evening, the great hall of the Blackstone pack filled with hundreds of wolves. Torches blazed as pack members gathered for a traditional ceremony. Though unofficial, everyone knew its meaning. Sarah stood beside Kieran as Elena draped a silver-threaded cloak around her shoulders, marking her as their Luna. The pack's acceptance flowed through her like warm honey, strengthening her resolve. One by one, they approached to offer small gifts and pledge their support. Even the children came forward, presenting wildflowers and showing off their tiny wolf forms. Among them was Sophie, Damon's 6-year-old daughter, who bounced excitedly toward the stairs. Suddenly, Sarah's vision blurred. She saw the loose stone, saw Sophie's fall, saw blood on marble steps. Without thinking, she lunged forward, catching the child moments before disaster. Damon rushed forward, scooping up his daughter. His eyes met Sarah's, understanding dawning as he realized what she prevented. The hardened Beta dropped to one knee, head bowed. "My life for yours, Luna," he pledged formally. "You have my loyalty now and always." Later that night in Kieran's chambers, the energy between them crackled with unspoken need. Sarah traced the scars on his chest, each one telling a story of battles fought and won. His hands tangled in her hair as he kissed her deeply, reverently. "We shouldn't," he whispered against her lips, even as he pulled her closer. "We should," she countered, pressing herself against him. "Everything might change tomorrow. Tonight is ours." Their lovemaking was both tender and desperate, each touch carrying the weight of what remained unspoken. Though they carefully avoided the mating bite, their connection transcended the physical as Sarah's gift flared between them. Their consciousness merged, showing each other not just memories but souls. His fierce protectiveness, her unwavering faith, their shared love burning brighter than any vision. In the quiet aftermath, wrapped in his arms with moonlight painting shadows across their skin, Sarah finally spoke the truth she'd been holding back. "I know how to defeat the Void Walker," she whispered against his chest. Kieran's arms tightened around her. "Tell me." "It feeds on alpha power," she explained. "But Luna power, the divine gift of prophecy, it's poison to such darkness. If someone channels enough Luna energy directly into its host..." She trailed off, unable to finish. "It would destroy the host too," Kieran concluded grimly, "along with whoever channels the power." Sarah nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "In every vision where we win, either you or I don't survive." "No." Kieran rolled over her, framing her face with his hands. "We'll find another way. I won't lose you, not to Marcus, not to this entity, not to anything." But Sarah saw it in his eyes, the absolute certainty that he would sacrifice himself without hesitation to save her. She pulled him down for another kiss, desperate to memorize everything about this moment. His taste, his scent, the feel of his heart beating against hers. "I love you," she whispered for the first time. His answering kiss was fierce and claiming. "You are my heart," he growled. "We face this together." They made love again as the moon climbed higher, each touch a promise, each kiss a prayer, neither speaking of the trial that awaited them at dawn. The full moon rose like a pearl against the darkening sky over summit grounds, its light casting an ethereal glow across the gathered crowd. Hundreds of wolves from every major pack filled the ancient amphitheater, their whispers echoing off stone walls that had stood for centuries. At the center, a raised platform held the 5 council members, their formal robes adorned with silver threading that caught the moonlight. Sarah stood before them, her silver-white hair streaming in the night breeze. Kieran watched from his position nearby, every muscle tense as his warriors formed a protective circle around the ritual space. Across the gathering, Marcus waited with his followers, his scarlet markings seeming to pulse with an unnatural light. "The trial of visions has not been witnessed in 50 years, the head council member announced, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "Luna Touch Sarah of the Moonright Pack will share her divine sight. Through her gift, truth cannot be hidden." Elena approached with a bowl of sacred water, helping Sarah drink the ritual mixture that would enhance her abilities. "Remember," she whispered, "don't fight the visions. Let them flow through you." Sarah nodded, then closed her eyes. At first, nothing happened. Then silvery light began to emanate from her skin, spreading outward like ripples on water. The light gathered above the amphitheater, forming shapes that slowly solidified into crystal-clear images. The crowd gasped as the first vision materialized, Marcus, younger and unmarked, kneeling in a circle of blood. His voice echoed unnaturally as he spoke words in an ancient tongue, offering his own pack members as sacrifices. The vision showed a shadow taking form, wrapping around him like smoke as he made his pact with the Void Walker. More visions followed, Marcus's eyes turning crimson as he drained the life force from his followers, his power growing with each death. Then came the night of the Moonright massacre. The crowd watched in horror as Marcus led his corrupted warriors through the peaceful pack's territory, systematically slaughtering everyone who stood between him and Sarah. The final vision showed Sarah's father's death in vivid detail, Marcus personally ripping out his throat, then using blood magic to forge the false contract. The evidence was undeniable. The head council member stood, his face grave. "The council has seen enough. Marcus Crimson, you are found." Marcus's laughter cut through the proclamation, chilling and inhuman. "Oh, I think not." He raised his arms, and suddenly dozens of small objects scattered throughout the amphitheater began to glow with sickly red light, the cursed artifacts he'd hidden in preparation. "No!" Elena cried out, but it was too late. The artifacts activated, creating a massive binding circle that trapped everyone inside. Dark energy crackled through the air as Marcus's body contorted. The Void Walker took full control, transforming Marcus into something monstrous. His body grew, muscles bulging and twisting unnaturally. His skin split to reveal scales beneath, and his face elongated into a grotesque mix of wolf and demon. When he spoke, his voice carried otherworldly echoes. "If the Prophet won't give her power willingly," the creature growled, "I'll tear it from her corpse." Kieran's warriors sprang into action as the monster charged. Ash and Ivy moved in perfect synchronization, trying to flank him while Damon led a frontal assault. But the creature was too powerful. It swatted them aside like toys, its claws leaving burning wounds that wouldn't heal. Kieran shifted into his massive black wolf form and launched himself at his brother's transformed body, but even his alpha strength couldn't penetrate the Void Walker's defenses. They crashed together in a brutal exchange of strikes, but for every wound Kieran inflicted, the creature seemed to grow stronger. The decisive moment came when Kieran lunged for the monster's throat. The creature caught him midair and slammed him into the stone floor. Kieran's ribs cracked audibly, and a silver-laced claw pressed against his throat. "Watch, brother," the creature hissed, "as I take everything from you." "Stop," Sarah's voice rang out. She stepped forward, her silver eyes glowing. "You want my power? Let him go, and I'll surrender willingly." "Sarah, no." Kieran tried to rise, but collapsed, blood staining his fur. The creature's twisted face formed something like a smile. "Swear it on your power." "I swear on my Lunatouch gift," Sarah said clearly, though her voice trembled. "Release him, and I'm yours." The monster stepped back from Kieran, extending one clawed hand towards Sarah. She walked forward slowly, every step measured, her eyes locked on Kieran's wounded form. When she reached the creature, she placed her trembling hand in its massive claw. "At last," the Void Walker growled through Marcus's transformed mouth, "your power will be mine." Through their strengthened bond, Sarah's mind touched Kieran's as she approached Marcus's monstrous form. In that fleeting connection, she shared her desperate plan, a vision of herself speaking Marcus's true soul name, the sacred name she'd seen in her prophetic sight. Such names held power over werewolves, capable of breaking even the strongest magic. "Just a few steps closer," she whispered in Kieran's mind. "I can free him from the Void Walker's control." The transformed creature that had once been Marcus pulled her closer with its massive clawed hand. The moment their skin touched, Sarah felt an icy darkness trying to leech her power. Her silver light dimmed as the Void Walker began draining her energy, making her gasp in pain. The summit grounds exploded into chaos. Some wolves charged forward, trying to help despite the binding circle trapping them all inside. Others scrambled toward the edges of the amphitheater, desperate to escape. The sound of snarling and screaming filled the air as Marcus's corrupted followers clashed with Kieran's warriors. Kieran fought through the mayhem, his black wolf form bowling over anyone who stood between him and Sarah. Blood matted his fur from a dozen wounds, but he wouldn't stop. Couldn't stop. Through their bond, he felt her growing weaker as the Void Walker fed on her power. Sarah's voice shook as she managed to whisper the first syllable of Marcus's soul name. "Xay." The creature's eyes widened in recognition and fury. Before she could complete the name, its clawed hand wrapped around her throat, crushing her windpipe. "Clever little prophet," it snarled in that terrible double voice, "but not clever enough." With black spots dancing in her vision and her power draining away, Sarah made her final desperate choice. She stopped fighting, stopped trying to protect her mind. Instead, she opened herself completely, letting every vision she'd ever had pour into Marcus through their point of contact. The flood of prophetic sight was overwhelming. She showed him everything, his childhood with Kieran, wrestling in their father's great hall, the pride in his eyes when Kieran became Alpha King, the first whispers of the Void Walker in his dreams, promising him he could be just as strong as his brother, the slow corruption of his soul as blood magic tainted him. But most importantly, she showed him the futures where he broke free, where he became the man he was meant to be. The psychic assault was too much for both of them. Sarah felt her consciousness flickering like a candle in the wind as her silver light faded to almost nothing. She collapsed, her body falling limply from the creature's grasp. Kieran caught her before she hit the ground, shifting back to human form to cradle her in his arms. "Sarah," he pleaded, feeling their bond growing dangerously weak. "Stay with me." Nearby, Marcus's transformed body crashed to its knees. The monster writhed, clawing at its own chest as two distinct voices screamed, the Void Walker's inhuman shriek and Marcus's human cries of agony. The corruption that had seemed so absolute now flickered, patches of normal skin showing through the scales as Marcus's true self fought against the possession. "Brother," Marcus's human voice broke through, thick with pain and regret. "Help me." But in the next moment, the Void Walker reasserted control, making the body convulse violently as the two souls warred for dominance. Sarah lay motionless in Kieran's embrace, her skin deathly pale. The silver streak in her hair had dulled to gray, and her breathing came in shallow, irregular gasps. The prophecy gift that had marked her as Luna-touched was almost completely drained. "Don't you dare leave me," Kieran growled, his voice breaking as he pulled her closer. He could feel her slipping away through their incomplete mate bond. "I can't lose you too." Around them, the battle in the amphitheater had frozen. Every wolf present, council members, pack warriors, and even Marcus's followers, stood transfixed by the sight of their Alpha King holding his dying mate while the possessed Marcus thrashed between forms, neither fully monster nor fully man. Sarah's eyes fluttered open one last time, finding Kieran's desperate gaze. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Through their fading bond, she sent him one final thought, full of love and regret. "I had to try to save him. For you." Then her eyes closed and her hand fell limp in Kieran's grasp as the last of her silver light guttered out like a dying star. Kieran cradled Sarah's limp form against his chest, her skin growing colder with each passing second. "Elena!" he roared, his voice cracking with desperation. "Help her!" The pack healer rushed forward through the chaos of the summit grounds, her medical bag clutched tight. Around them, the summit guards wrestled Marcus's thrashing body into silver chains, though it was hard to tell if they were restraining man or monster as he flickered between forms. "Get her inside now," Elena ordered, all protocol forgotten in the emergency. No one dared question her commanding the Alpha King, not when Sarah's life hung by a thread. They rushed to the summit's healing chambers where Elena immediately began pulling out herbs and crystals. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she checked Sarah's vital signs. "Her life force is dangerously low," Elena muttered, pressing glowing palms against Sarah's chest. The vision flood drained her almost completely. Through their incomplete mate bond, Kieran felt Sarah's presence growing fainter, like a candle flame in a strong wind. He paced the room like a caged animal, his wolf howling in anguish. "There must be something we can do." Elena worked through the night, trying every healing technique in her vast experience. She channeled pack energy, used ancient herbs, even attempted forbidden restoration spells, but nothing worked. Sarah's silver light continued to dim. "Her prophet gifts are too deeply entwined with her life force," Elena finally admitted, exhaustion clear in her voice. When she opened herself completely to those visions. "Take my energy," Kieran interrupted, moving to Sarah's bedside. "Take my alpha power through our bond." Elena's eyes widened. "My king, that could kill you. An incomplete mate bond wasn't meant to channel that much power. If she draws too deeply—" "I don't care," Kieran growled. He clasped Sarah's cold hand between his own. "Do it." Elena hesitated only a moment before nodding. She placed one hand on Kieran's chest and one on Sarah's, creating a circuit. "Focus on your bond. Open yourself completely, like she did with the visions." Kieran closed his eyes and let his walls drop. His alpha energy surged through Elena's connection, pouring into Sarah like a river of molten gold. The power transfer burned through his veins, making him grit his teeth against the pain. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop, not while he felt Sarah's spirit growing stronger. A commotion in the hallway broke his concentration. Damon burst into the room, his expression grim. "My king, we have reports. Marcus's corrupted followers are mobilizing, at least 300 strong, marching on the summit." "How long?" Kieran demanded, swaying slightly as another wave of energy left him. 2 hours, maybe less." Before Kieran could respond, a scream echoed from the holding cells. They rushed to find Marcus thrashing against his restraints, his eyes clearing to their natural color for a brief moment. "Kill me," he begged, looking at Damon with desperate lucidity. "Before it takes control again, please." The beta raised his ceremonial dagger, but Ivystone darted forward. "Wait. We need Sarah conscious. She started something with that vision flood. She's the only one who knows his complete soul name. It might be the key to separating him from the Void Walker permanently." Everyone turned to Elena, who nodded slowly. "The energy transfer is working," She's stabilizing, but— But what? Kieran demanded. You're dangerously weak, my king. Continuing the transfer while defending against an attack will be necessary, Kieran finished firmly. He straightened despite his trembling muscles. Damon, rally our warriors. Ash, Ivy, coordinate with the summit guards. We hold this position at all costs. Through sheer force of will and Kieran's continuous energy feed, Sarah's eyes finally fluttered open. She was too weak to sit up, but her voice carried clear purpose. Bring Marcus here, she whispered, quickly. As their forces prepared for battle, Sarah explained her plan to the others. The soul name will work, but we have to time it perfectly. The Void Walker is weakest when it shifts between Marcus's forms. That's our window. And the attacking forces? Damon pressed. They're connected to the Void Walker through blood magic, Sarah explained. When we break its hold on Marcus, the corruption in their blood will shatter too. But we have to keep them back until then. Outside, war howls filled the night as the enemy approached. Kieran stood at the window, his usual commanding presence diminished by the continuous drain of energy he fed to Sarah. But his voice remained strong as he turned to his most trusted warriors. Defend this position, he ordered. Buy us time for one final confrontation with the darkness that took my brother. Through the windows of the summit building, chaos erupted as hundreds of corrupted wolves charged forward, their eyes blazing with an unnatural crimson glow. The same dark light that possessed Marcus now burned in each of their gazes, turning them into mindless weapons of the Void Walker's will. Hold the line! Damon shouted from the courtyard, directing the combined forces of Blackstone warriors and summit guards. The sound of snarling and tearing flesh filled the air as the two forces collided. Inside, Ash and Ivy Stone supported Sarah between them as they made their way to Marcus's holding cell. Kieran walked beside them, one hand always touching Sarah to maintain the energy transfer, keeping her conscious. Each step drained more of his strength, but his jaw remained set with determination. They found Marcus chained to the stone wall with silver bindings. His head snapped up as they entered, and a terrible laugh that wasn't his own echoed through the chamber. So weak, the Void Walker sneered through Marcus's lips, the mighty prophet barely able to stand, and you, Brother King, pouring out your power like water. How easily you all break. The only thing breaking today is your hold on my brother, Kieran growled. Sarah squeezed his hand, drawing on their connection for one final push. Help me closer, she whispered. The twins carefully maneuvered her forward until she could place her trembling hand on Marcus's chest. The creature wearing his skin tried to pull away, but the chains held firm. You don't know his true name, it taunted. No one does. A small smile touched Sarah's pale lips. I've seen it in every vision. I've known it since I was a child. She took a deep breath, gathering the last fragments of her strength. Marcus Ashenheart Blackstone, she began, her voice growing stronger with each word. Brother of Flame, Son of Shadow, remember who you were. The name rang through the chamber like a bell, each syllable glowing with power. Marcus's body went rigid, his eyes flickering between crimson and their natural dark brown as two spirits warred within him. Remember the boy who followed his brother everywhere? Sarah continued, pressing harder against his chest. Remember the warrior who protected his pack. Remember your true self, Marcus Ashenheart Blackstone. Marcus threw his head back and screamed, the sound shifting between human agony and demonic rage. Then suddenly his eyes cleared completely. Kieran, he gasped, his voice his own again. I remember. I know how to stop it. The Void Walker fought to regain control, making Marcus's body convulse violently, but he held on, forcing the words out through gritted teeth. It feeds on alpha power, but only power taken by force, a willing sacrifice. That's what it can't survive. Kieran stepped forward immediately. Then I'll give up my alpha status. It's worth it to end this. No, Marcus shouted, straining against the chains. This is my redemption, brother, my chance to make things right. His eyes filled with tears. I let it in willingly. I have to be the one to cast it out. Before anyone could stop him, Marcus closed his eyes and reached deep within himself. His chest began to glow with a brilliant crimson light as he literally tore his own alpha power from his core. The process was excruciating. Sweat poured down his face as he screamed in agony, but he didn't stop. Finally, a pulsing orb of red energy floated between his hands. The Void Walker's presence became visible then, a writhing shadow trying desperately to escape Marcus's body. You wanted alpha power so badly. Marcus snarled at the entity. Then take it all. With the last of his strength, he crushed the glowing orb between his palms. The Voidwalker's shriek shattered every window in the building as the willing sacrifice of power burned through its dark essence like holy fire. The cursed markings that had scarred Marcus's face began to fade, flaking away like ash in the wind. Marcus slumped in his chains, completely drained, but finally, truly himself. He was no longer an alpha, that power was gone forever, but he was alive. More importantly, he was free. Outside, the corrupted wolves suddenly stopped fighting. The crimson light left their eyes as the blood magic binding them shattered along with the Voidwalker's destruction. Many collapsed, others fled into the night, but the battle was over. Kieran rushed forward to release his brother from the chains, catching Marcus as he fell. For the first time in 5 years, the brothers held each other without darkness or hatred between them. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered, "for everything." "I know," Kieran answered, his voice rough with emotion. "Welcome home, little brother." The summit grounds buzzed with activity as the High Council convened an emergency session. 5 pack leaders sat in judgment, their faces stern as they reviewed the evidence of recent events. The council chamber fell silent as they delivered their unanimous decree. The mate bond between Alpha King, Kieran Blackstone, and Sarah Moonwright is officially recognized, the head counselor announced. All prior claims are hereby rendered null and void. Their union has been blessed by Luna herself through trial and sacrifice. Marcus stood before them, no longer radiating alpha power, but somehow looking more at peace than he had in years. His face, now free of the cursed markings, showed genuine remorse as he turned to face Kieran and Sarah. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said quietly, "but you should know. The Voidwalker had been whispering to me since I was barely more than a pup. It poisoned my thoughts, twisted my jealousy into something darker. I fought it for years before finally giving in." Sarah stepped forward, her silver eyes gentle. "I've seen it in my visions. How it corrupted you slowly, feeding on your pain and doubt. You weren't entirely yourself even before the full possession." Kieran's jaw clenched as he battled between brotherly love and the memory of betrayal. Finally, he placed a heavy hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You chose to sacrifice everything to make things right. That counts for something." "I sentence myself to exile," Marcus declared. "Let me serve the packs by hunting down any remnants of dark magic. It's the least I can do to atone." Kieran pulled his brother into a fierce embrace. "Come back when you've found your peace. You'll always have a home here." 1 week later, the Blackstone territory transformed into a place of celebration. Under a full moon, with representatives from all 5 major packs in attendance, Kieran and Sarah prepared for their mating ceremony. The sacred circle was drawn with mountain ash and blessed with ancient prayers. Sarah wore a gown of flowing silver, her white streaked hair crowned with moonflowers. Kieran stood proud in formal black and gold, his alpha power radiating pure strength and protection. As they spoke their vows, their energy merged visibly, his deep gold light intertwining with her silver glow. When their mating bite finally connected them completely, the power surge knocked everyone back a step. Sarah's eyes blazed with otherworldly light as her prophetic gift expanded beyond anything she'd known before. Their bond hummed with unprecedented strength, a perfect fusion of alpha might and Luna's blessing. During the celebration feast, Sarah suddenly gasped, gripping Kieran's hand as a vision overtook her. Joy bloomed across her face as the images cleared. "Twins," she whispered for his ears alone. "We're going to have twins, the first Alpha Prophet hybrids ever born. They'll bridge the gap between physical and spiritual worlds, bringing our kind into a new era." The pack erupted in cheers as Kieran announced the news, but Sarah held him back for one private moment. She shared another vision through their fresh bond. Marcus, years from now, returning to them transformed. His sacrifice of alpha power had earned him a different gift, the ability to sense and destroy dark magic, making him their strongest defender against future threats. "He'll find his redemption," she murmured against Kieran's chest, "and our family will be whole again." Kieran held her close, their mate bond singing with love and possibility. The future stretched bright before them, full of challenges but also hope, exactly as it should be for an Alpha King and his prophetic mate. Sarah stood before the assembled packs, her silver-streaked hair catching the morning light as she addressed the largest gathering of werewolves in recent history. Her ceremonial dress flowed gracefully over her rounded belly, where the twin heirs of the Blackstone pack grew stronger each day. The great hall of their territory hummed with anticipation as representatives from every regional pack waited for her words. 6 months ago, we faced darkness together, she began, her voice carrying to every corner. Today, we stand united in peace. The rogues who once threatened our borders have found homes among us. Those corrupted by dark magic have been healed and rehabilitated. This is not just my vision, it is our reality. Kieran stood proudly at her side, his powerful presence a reminder of the strength that backed her prophetic guidance. Since their mating, their combined powers had transformed werewolf society. Where once packs fought over territory and old grudges, now they sought counsel through Sarah's visions, preventing bloodshed before it could begin. After the gathering dispersed, Sarah and Kieran retired to their private chambers, where a letter awaited them, bearing Marcus's familiar scent. Kieran broke the seal and read aloud, his voice growing serious as he shared his brother's news. He's been tracking dark artifacts across the eastern territories, Kieran explained, scanning the pages. Marcus says he's found evidence of other Voidwalkers, ancient entities like the one that possessed him. But he's different now. He can sense their corruption and destroy it before they gain power. Sarah touched the letter gently. He's found his purpose in protecting others from what nearly destroyed him. As evening approached, they stood together on their private balcony, watching the sun paint the sky in brilliant golds and purples. Kieran's arms wrapped protectively around Sarah, his hands resting on her swollen belly where their children stirred. "I have something to show you," Sarah whispered, placing her hands over his. Through their mate bond, she shared her latest vision, a scene of joy and hope that brought tears to both their eyes. In the vision, children played in the castle courtyard. Their twins, a boy and girl with silver-streaked hair and alpha strength, chased after their cousins, Marcus's future children, all of them laughing beneath a great banner that showed the symbols of all packs united as one. "Do you know why I spoke your name that day in the auction house?" Sarah asked, turning in his embrace. "It wasn't random chance. Since I was a little girl, I've been seeing you in my visions, calling to you across time and space. Our souls were always meant to find each other, to change everything." Kieran's eyes glowed with emotion as he felt their children kick beneath his palm. "When I heard you say my name that day, it broke through every wall I'd built around my heart. I thought I was protecting myself by avoiding a mate bond, but you showed me that true strength comes from love." "We didn't just break a curse," he continued, voice rich with pride and wonder. "Together we created a new world, one where power and compassion walk hand in hand, where packs stand united instead of divided." Sarah leaned into his embrace, their bond humming with shared joy and purpose, a world our children will inherit and make even better. From their balcony, they could see the lights of their pack territory below, peaceful and prosperous under their protection. The future stretched before them like an open road, full of promise and possibility, shaped by the unprecedented power of their love. If today's story reminded you of the quiet strength of love, I'd love to see you again. Subscribe, and tomorrow we'll meet right here, where love speaks softly and stays.